Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the third session of the Green Webinar Series, where we'll be discussing financing a green recovery post-COVID-19. During the past few weeks, we've touched on sensitive topics from the interconnectivity between climate change and peace building to the power of sustainable agriculture in achieving zero hunger. And it would be amiss of us if we do not talk about finance and how we can harness it, and how it can be harnessed to achieve a green recovery, which is what we'll be focusing on this webinar today. Now, join me as I welcome our host for today, Rukayat Ali Oluwafi. She's a core environmental management and sustainability professional. Thank you for joining us, Rukayat. Over to you now.
Thank you for having me, Temitope. Good day, everyone. And as you rightly said, my name is Rukayat Ali Oluwafi, and I'll be your host for this program. Like she rightly said, we've seen the effects, we've seen the interconnectedness between climate change, COVID-19, and the importance of being strategic about a recovery post-COVID-19. Now, it is not
connexion entre le COVID-19 et le changement climatique.
Recovery in Africa. So with me, we have Dr. Yakama Manti Jones, who is a Sierra Leonean economist, lecturer, and entrepreneur with a PhD in finance and economics. She is the director of research and delivery at the Sierra Leone Ministry of Finance. She has authored and co-authored multiple scholarly articles and spoken at various organizations, such as TEDx Youth, Africa Oxford Initiative, and the World Bank. She is the founder of the Yak Jones Foundation and also co-founded the Peninsula Innovation Group, which is the PI group. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Yakama Manti Jones. The next person is, you're welcome. The next person is Mr. Bankole Oloruntoba, who is a social and business statistics engagement specialist with a deep background in corporate communication, entrepreneurship development, business and idea development, innovation management, and investment. He's an expert on the Innovation Hub setup stroke sustainability, and is currently the director of the Nigeria Climate Innovation Center, a World Bank and Federal Government of Nigeria assisted innovation center. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Bankole Oloruntoba. Mr. Bankole. All right then. Yeah. So before I proceed, I'm going to give us a bit of housekeeping. Please note that this event is to last for 2 hours and is being recorded. The event will also be broadcasting via the Facebook page of the 11-11-12 Foundation. The audience can use the chat box to ask questions, and panelists are free to answer any question in the chat box if they so wish, but we will be taking some of the unanswered questions later during the question and answer session. Also, there is a French translation. To listen in French, please click on the translation button on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. I hope we all got that. Yeah, so having said that, I think it's going to be nice to just move on to the questions. So anyone can take, I won't be directing my questions to any particular person, but if you want to answer, you can just let me know that you want to answer. So first off, I would like to ask that, can you briefly tell us what a green recovery would look like?
Will that be for me or for Yakma?
You can take it.
Maybe I'll let the lady go first. I mean, ladies first. Yakma, over to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. So I know a lot of countries we've all been trying to recover from COVID, addressing COVID. And now there's a lot of talk about the green economy. And most times when we've been approaching this conversation, it's mostly from the sustainable development angle. So now when we're looking at the green economy and recovery in terms of a green recovery, I think we should try to make it clear to everyone that is part of the conversation that the green economy is not just limited to climate change. So it encompasses climate change, energy access, caring for addressing issues around environmental degradation, sanitation, availability of water, and management of other natural resources that have implications for our natural environment. So I think when we're looking at how we can say we're working towards a green recovery is how we work to sustainably implement positive change that will help strengthen our societies in terms of all these different buckets: the environment, how can improve clean energy access, how can manage our environment better, especially in terms of deforestation, how we can better deal with waste management issues and sanitation, how we can protect our water sources so that it's not only just for domestic consumption, but also for use in industries. So all of these in how we allocate resources towards them, building the institutions to support their proper management, developing the skills and human capacity for people to work in these different sectors, and also creating an enabling environment for also the private sector to work with the public sector in driving positive change in these areas is what I think we should consider when we say we're working towards a green recovery.
Thank you very much for that robust explanation, and it was very insightful. So
if I'm going to back it up, let me
okay.
also add a bit.
Okay.
To what Dr. Jones has said. So I think that greening the economy also available transactional side of things. When it comes to SMEs and opening up possibilities within the green market. Just like she said, the whole green economy is not just covered only on one aspect of climate change, but also around creating decent jobs and looking at jobs of the future, and also laying down infrastructure possibilities and also opportunities when it comes to creating finances and opening up SME possibilities. So we know that during COVID, there was a huge cut in resources for many companies, which led to loss of jobs, and many of these people who lost jobs either took up to SME services or some form of consulting services, and so. Is that how do we open up a whole new opportunity around maintaining currently there's this whole it is either us or them kind of mentality going around people who do green and people who deal in oil. It's sort of like a model or a strategy of creating an alternative emerging economy for many of innovation policies, name it. So I think it's quite a huge mix around major stakeholders of academia, financial markets, innovation, SMEs, and also startup related services and even households. So how do you do production? So you see, households also have their own parts to play when it comes to and all this also falls within the parts of greening the economy. Thank you. Go ahead, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bankole. So I'll just go next to, I'll go to my next question. So I would like to ask our lady, Dr. Yakama, Dr. Jones, I think, would you prefer that? Yeah, Dr. Jones. Please, could you describe the role of innovation in growing our emerging green economy in Africa?
Thank you, Rukayat. So the role of innovation in growing our emerging green economy in Africa. And like I said before, we need to think about this holistically. So most times when we say innovation, we kind of limit it to innovation in the technological space, like just innovating around new products or new services. But for us to actually drive sustainable growth in terms of the green economy, it has to go beyond that. So it's innovation in terms of financing, innovation in terms of new policies, innovation in developing the human capacity and driving new skills that are needed in this green recovery, and also, of course, innovation in the technological space. So when we describe innovation in growing our green economy, it's innovation across all of these buckets and creating the enabling environment that allows room for continuous ideation, continuous capacity building, continuous research and development, and creating opportunities where the private sector and other players can be able to commercialize some of these innovative ideas so that all of these interventions will be financially sustainable. And when we're thinking about innovation, we should not also think about it in the space as if nothing is going on now. We all, different countries, different economies have an existing baseline from which they can start. So the first thing they could consider is how would these innovations or these new ideas can be adapted, can be adaptive. So it's like modifying existing technologies and making them more useful or making them more efficient. And then beyond, and that can happen throughout the technology development cycle. And then there are others where you can also, what Brookings describes as frontier innovations. So these are the new ones that have not yet been introduced in the world. So this is where you can do a lot of seeding and testing and piloting before you release them for general use or adaptation throughout the country. And then, of course, in all of these innovations, it's not like they should be like white elephants kind of project or policy changes. There are things that we should really be able to absorb in our different systems and in our different societies. So another piece we should look at when considering innovation for the green economy is how absorptive our institutional environments are, how some of these innovations we can be able to build on them from year to year, how we can also adapt them from year to year as other emerging challenges emerge. And of course, in terms of innovation as well, one of the key things I think we should consider, apart from the skills, the infrastructure, is also the policy framework. And a lot of times, I think when we're thinking about commercializing these innovations in terms of the green economy, is how we support intellectual property, how international agreements around technology transfers would be done. Even now, if we look at the COVID response, we have all these institutional knowledge or intellectual property issues around vaccination. How can countries lean in to say, okay, say like what South Africa and Rwanda and I think Senegal have been doing to reach out to these vaccine manufacturers on sharing intellectual property to allow production of vaccines on the continent. So when we're thinking about innovation in the green economy space, these are some of the things I think we should address, and this is what I think holistically we should use to describe the role of innovation in our green economy. And one of the things that I also want to point out is that high-income countries are really advanced in this area. And if you look at the amount of patents that they've been issuing, especially for waste-to-energy technologies, but when it comes to developing countries, we are more towards the wind and solar energy categories compared to high income countries. So I think there's also room when we're looking at how innovation will play a role in the recovery and sustainable green economy development. Our countries need to kick up pace a lot. And yes, so innovation is across people, policies, the actual technology itself, and also how we can be innovative around financing and creating a entrepreneurial culture, because this green recovery economy is not just dependent on what our governments do. It also has a lot of interplays with the private sector and what we can do in terms of entrepreneurship, because it's kind of a relatively new space. And it's the entrepreneurs that support like identifying problems and coming up with solutions. So that ideation cycle is something that we should not leave out. And also the culture of technical knowledge. So more people being aware of what's going on and bringing them to be part of the conversation can also help drive innovation in the space. So I think I'll stop here for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. So my next question will be going to Mr. Bankole. This is quite lengthy, but yeah, I'll try to be slow while I'm reading. What role does the financial system play in enabling large-scale projects and corporate ventures to mobilize capital and transfer risk, and also for small, medium, and micro enterprises and households? And I think I need to break this into two questions. What role does financial system play in enabling large-scale projects and corporate ventures to mobilize capital and transfer risk?
Hello?
Yeah, did you get that?
Yeah, I got it. So I think, financial institutions really play that, strategic role in ensuring that investors are confident with the country and with the economy where you're playing. So like Yakima said, things around policies, innovation in financing models, guaranteeing investments, giving incentives to investors and also businesses who are raising finance, outside the country, is really key. Because the cost of finance, right? When you look at the cost of finance, when it comes to interest rates, and also the consulting services that needs to happen for such finance to be taken, to be brought over, and then the process of getting that finance. This is why you see that when money is being raised, it's usually being prioritized over certain things. So this country, from a government perspective, needs to do is to create a process whereby private sector finance institutions are capable and have the capacity to be able to manage larger transactions, right? Because one, we have the market. And to tie in that SME side that is sounding so long, this is where the private capital market needs to create opportunities for SME market to be able to access finance. So again, the foreign direct investment that comes into this country has to pass through a process, and which is the commercial banks, right? And many times often with the public sector providing stringent or making stringent laws that does not protect or rather support access to finance, will make it harder for us to have access to many of these funds. So I think that when you look at things around policy, which is key, you look at policy from the access, from the access to finance perspective, from a financial capital institutions to another, and also from the private sector, which is from the transactional aspect, which is the small and medium enterprises, to be able to do another. So let me give an example. So for instance, in NCIC, which is the center where I lead, the Nigerian Climate Innovation Center, we have been doing programs around lifting SMEs and also innovation-driven enterprises, to be able to access funds. And so we started this, so we have this program that we do with Olon called the Embryo Incubation Program, which we just graduated about 20 on Monday, 2 days ago. And 8 of these businesses have been awarded about $10,000. So what this does for them is that they're able to build their prototype, which puts them in the market, which makes them accessible or also credit worthy because of the people who have put early stage finances into them. And we looked at it also from the aspect of SMEs, and we say that when you look at small and medium scale enterprises, they are highly transactional in nature. So they need transaction capital or operating capital, right? And so we have a partnership with Providence Bank, which is also one of the leading sustainable financial institutions in Nigeria. And what Providence Bank has done with us is to set up a pilot 500 million green credit line, which is about $1.3 million. But the beauty of this fund is that you sort of like have an endless cap, where you can access all the way up to $5 million or $2 million as case may be. But nevertheless, what we need to do moving further is to look at opportunities where we can cushion the effect of the of the interest rate by looking for foreign direct investors who are also interested in the capital market of Nigeria around that SME aspect, and support that fund with additional capital that can either further cushion the interest rate of that fund, or also make it a lot more accessible when it comes to opportunities. Another thing you should look at again is the policies around loans and access to capital in the country. So for us, we know that collateral is a very big issue. So discussing with the So access to green funds. Can you retrace that question for me again?
Yeah, you talked about Providence Bank.
So I said that making it conducive for more businesses to access this this fund. It is very important that we also partner with other financial the effect of this fund and make it a lot more accessible, on different scales. So there's a whole lot of in creating conducive environment, while the banks process by understanding the sector, where they play for the player.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah. I got that. Thank you. I got that. Can hear you? Yeah. No, I think the network on your end is quite. We had a struggle hearing you, but at least I'm sure we got majority of what you were trying to tell us. So I'll direct my next question. Is Dr. Jones here? I don't think Dr. Jones is with us anymore. Let me see. We lost Dr. Jones. Can Mr. Bankole hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so we lost Dr. Jones. So I think I will just direct the next question to you again.
All right.
Yeah. So how would you say African governments are faring in terms of providing unhindered access to green financing to our youth?
I would say that the African government is just being cautious. I think trying to rate them on whether they are doing perfectly fine or whether they're doing perfectly well compared to their European counterparts and their Asian counterparts also can be a bit unfair. We all know the dynamics and the challenges of many African governments. There's a whole lot of factors that play around making decisions and also creating programs for the community. So I think that yes, we know they've got their own faults and their own challenges in their own little way, but you know how fragile the African economy can be, and so many times, often the resources to test and keep testing is also not there. So again, because of stringent resources, really is a lot more to learn and being interested in the green is also doing its best, you know, to provide all the necessary support. But I still think that there's a lot of, things that needs to be done in the aspect of, reviewing policies and also, taking a gamble on the, on the youthful population. I think that with the kind of innovations that we find, which for us at NCIC, we see these innovations at a very, constant level. And I think that the African innovation ecosystem has learned not to, over the years, to shy away from what is very beautiful to what is a lot more functional. So again, just like, Yakima said earlier, that it's not just about how it is by tech or IT as the case may be, but also technology cuts across, from digital to engineering to mechanical and several other things. So, and I think that with the kind of efforts that the African governments are also opening up, when it comes to building capacity and access for innovation, I think that there is more that we'll see that will happen in the next 3 to 5 years, better than what we've seen in the last 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Bankole. But our attendees would like to have a feel of familiarity. So perhaps when you want to respond to questions, maybe just let us see your face a bit.
I hope the bandwidth will allow. Here I am.
Just when you want to speak. Just when you want to speak. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So I think we've got Dr. Jones back. So Dr. Jones, can you hear me? Okay. Your mic is muted. Okay, yeah. Oh, so it's muted again. Dr. Jones, are you there? It's gone again.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. We lost you for a bit.
Sorry, the power went out. We were switching over to generator.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So we've been talking about access. Mr. Bankole has answered questions on access to green financing to you to youths. I don't know. Did you get that?
No, I didn't. But we can just continue.
Okay, that's fine. So my next question is for you. So what are the policies that you think are required to design a sustainable financial system in Africa that will help us to improve the effectiveness of mobilizing capital towards the green and inclusive economy?
So for policies around designing a sustainable financial system, I think the key word here is sustainable. We should not get lost in terms of the financing, because for sustainable financial systems, it's like everything in the system should be working seamlessly together in the same direction. And this depends on several institutional factors. So this can depend on how we design policies to strengthen our financial institutions, the quality of technical and financial planning. How do we coordinate processes across all these different players in the financial ecosystem, deepening stakeholder engagement, how well we manage these financial institutions, and even transparency and accountability, because in finance and with looking towards getting investors and entrepreneurs, there has to be some level of trust, and the degree of transparency and accountability that you show in your financial system also helps with the signaling to drive or improve on confidence in your financial systems. So we need to design policies that will address not only strengthening our financial institutions technically, but also around showing that we have like high level political ownership for these processes, and there's widespread ownership other players to thrive. And policies frame it to be sustainable, there should be cross-sectorial participation, cross-sectorial collaboration for them to be sustainable. So we can start seeing how probably governments can start with fiscal reforms that will generate revenues to create space for investment in the green economy. And then also how some of these expenditures can also benefit the poor, the social, other social groups. So when we invest in that way, these investments would be more sustainable. And for example, we hear countries like saying, paying, a lot of countries now, I don't know about Nigeria, but I can tell you, like energy is being subsidized by the government. And sometimes it's like, if some of these monies, if they're not being used to fund fossil fuel kind of energy, they might be used to in order to fund other social services. So we need to make sure that in building these policies, subsidies and innovation in the green economic space would help us to move towards cleaner energy and encourage efficiency so that whatever free bandwidth we can get in terms of resources can be reallocated to other energy intensive sectors or also towards providing other social goods and services for the populace. In other countries, some countries allocate or they initiate or levy environmental taxes and levies, and this can also be sources of revenues that they can use to fund other interventions, like you levy environmental taxes, and the revenues from that you can use to fund like tree planting activities, getting youth into schemes around recycling and other waste management interventions. So there are different things that countries can do to drive policies in that in the financial space for the green economy. And one of the things we should also consider is how we can incentivize investment in that space, because domestic revenue alone cannot address all what we need in terms of investing in the green economy. Development aid alone cannot do it. So we really need to find ways to incentivize investments in these spaces. And when we're saying incentivized investments, we should look about providing investment security, reducing transaction costs, and even the market stability. So there's a lot that can be done to promote these investments, but then not all countries are in the same space. Some countries are more advanced than others. Some are more focused. Some have like dedicated green economy strategies. Some just have that embedded in their usual national development plans. And it's just how the conversations or how intentional the leadership in these countries have been in driving the policies in these spaces that will accelerate the pace at which some of these investments pan out, or at which we actually start seeing tangible change in the green economy space. And excuse me, regulatory instruments are also critical because nobody wants to put monies where the risks are so high and there's no form of protection. So regulating the financial space, protecting investors, especially minority investors, are some of the policies that can also help strengthen the financial space for investing in the green economy. And we should not be so focused on just large companies. Of course, there's room for across the whole ecosystem. Small and medium enterprises have a role to play, and large companies have a role to play, governments have a role to play. So when we're designing some of these policies, we should not lose sight of how they can be made applicable to different cadres of players or stakeholders in this space. And to make them sustainable as well, we should not lose sight of the importance of behavioral change in this, in driving green growth. Because if we're talking about protecting our environment, proper waste management, tree planting, managing water sources, I think you also need to have policies around driving positive behavioral change, proper disposal of waste, knowing that we should try to reuse plastics, recycling, other sanitation measures, even teaching kids from catching them young from school days, working with youth, women, on how to just change our mindset on how we live and how we need to be more intentional about protecting our environment, and that climate change is real. So we need to also have policies around this. So when we have policies around this driving behavioral change, we know that when it comes to the financial resources, whatever investment any player makes in this sector, they will know that their monies will not be going down the drain. It will be towards sustainable change.
Thank you very much. Are you done, Ma?
Yes, I'll stop here.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would have loved to ask Mr. Bankole, but you already said some things about policies. So my next question, Mr. Bankole, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now, because you are in the Innovation Center, so I would like to know what your take is on the role of innovation in growing
In green what?
The role of innovation, because you are in the innovation space. I would like to know what your take is on the role of innovation in growing the emerging economy in Africa.
So, I mean, Yakma said these things, a couple of minutes ago about how innovation really plays a significant role, and not just around the area of tech as a product, but around policy and also finance. I mean, there are different models around finance that is coming up, mezzanine, blended, too many of them that way, and also community, based kind of financing. And now we are also trying to explore cluster, cluster market financing. So I think that the role of innovation, which is basically around the thinking behind it, and how you can simplify already existing processes, which again, for me, I think it's a very strategic role within the growth of green financing and also the green market in Africa. So I think that when we're discussing around innovation, we should look away from that whole tech startup, side of things. We should look at innovation from a broad perspective. What is the thinking behind many policies? What is the thinking behind some, funding, some funding, instruments? What are the guiding lines around, some of the DFIs that come into Africa? How come that, foreign finance really don't want to listen to what African needs are, but rather want to create a perspective around what they see impact are? So because again, impact from a foreign perspective and impact from an African perspective, which is again about 52 countries, are definitely going to be different. Looking at all the different possibilities in the different areas where you want to work in as a DFI, that's a development finance institution, or a foreign, finance institution, is also to work with partnerships. So innovation can always happen, in so many ways. For us, we build innovation in so many processes. Innovation around sector, innovation around policy, around financing, even up to product. So at the NCIC, I think that we have upheld the
network.
The role of innovation in every single thing that we do, in which we have quite a number of them at NCIC. And each of these CICs are to work and support, the ecosystem, which makes up of government, private sector, development sector, academia, and also the SME and household sector. So our role mostly is to look at what are the kind of innovative approaches that we can design to help facilitate, access to market, access to finance, product development, skill when it comes to market and possibilities, and even looking at the technology is, by technology now I mean digital technology models or products that can improve, all these different factors that we have said. So, I mean, not considering innovation, I think is going to be a huge mistake by many African leaders. But again, I believe that African leaders, are a lot wiser, because again, when you have people like, Dr. Jones supporting, from a strong ministry, these are the kind of things that we always want to see. We want to see more Africans who really understand Africa create policies and products that are going to further develop Africa. And all this can be done definitely through innovative approaches. So yeah, innovation is super number one key when it comes to the different kind of things we want to create.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bankole. I like that angle that you added to the innovation question. So my next question will go to Dr. Jones. Do you think Africa is on the path to a green recovery by any means? Dr. Jones, are you there?
Wow, this is a tough question. So yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so are we on the path to green recovery? So yes, I think the pace varies from country to country. So firstly, having the conversation, these conversations are happening, is the first step that shows that the awareness is there, the willingness, our opening up and listening. So that means we have started the journey. It's just that, like I said before, different countries are in different stages. If you look at how progress is being made across the continent. So if you see like countries like Ethiopia, Mozambique, Rwanda, so they already have like green economic strategies, and these consultative processes, and it includes sectors like agriculture, renewable energy, transport, natural resource management, water. So the countries like that are already more advanced in terms of progress towards attaining a green economy. Then you have like countries like creating opportunities in that space, generating jobs in the green economy space. We have countries like Ghana, so they've even done like green economy assessments that are informing policy changes and so more longer term plans. Organizations like the UN that are supporting some of these assessments with interventions that will address not only the economic aspect of green recovery, but also social and environmental impact in both the short and long term. So yes, we are at different stages, and now it's clear economics of things is that growth should be sustainable, not only being inclusive in not leaving like vulnerable groups behind, but also in terms of the environment in which we live, because if the earth no longer exists in a way in which we can survive and thrive in it, then all of the work we're doing would be in vain. But then for us to build back better, I think we need to enhance collaboration. So we know that South-South collaboration, we also need to see how we can continue to leverage these new frontier innovations and supporting adaptive technology, so that, because different countries have different baselines, we all don't have all the resources we require for the growth that we need. So we need to see how we can adapt more inclusive, and of course, how we can increase financing. And this is really critical because some of the challenges, even on a day-to-day basis, is access to finance. So if countries are seeking to see how we'll improve on our growth trajectory in the green economic space, access technologies, finance to review policies and legislative frameworks, finance to actually train humans to gain new skills to address these emerging changes. So I think as long as we continue the investment, we'll be on a better trajectory, but we're not there yet in no way. And I don't think we should be comfortable just because it's topical now and and we're doing all these policy reforms. I think we need to be really intentional about targeting these reforms, looking at what the quick wins can be and how we can scale up some of these interventions. Sector, bringing in academia, having different inputs into this process a bit more. And one of the things I think we should also consider strongly when we're looking to accelerate private investment, because the money is really important. We have the people, we have the ideas, we have the policies. If we don't, it will be mostly an exercise in futile. So it's how we can really scale up financial innovation to lessen the risk for investment. So like sovereign risk insurance, having flexible interest rates dependent on how project outcomes are, how we can also material required for loans and make them more flexible and more innovative, because in the green economy, it's mostly funds are being directed to tried and tested technologies. So those that are still in early stages of research and development are kind of struggling. And this is where we have most of the startups and where we have most of the young people working. So as a continent, we need to see how we can be a bit more focused in directing resources towards those and how we can add value. So we see cases like where we'll have people using waste from carpentry workshops to make briquettes for our school. We can see how there are businesses that are using waste plastic and sand to make bricks. So there are different things how we can be innovative around those, and people doing a bit more of waste to energy. So that's where we are not only managing waste and taking care of the environment, but also generating clean energy. So there are lots of things that are ongoing now that have put us on the path, but we need to invest more and be innovative on how we can accelerate the development that's ongoing, and also how we can bring in more players into the space so that the change would be more inclusive. So yes, we're moving towards a sustainable green recovery. We're not there yet by any means, but since the conversations and the investments are happening, it's just been more intentional and been more focused to make sure that we achieve these goals that we've set for ourselves, and how we can make sure that the conversations are not happening in silos, but everyone that needs to be part of the process are included.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Jones. Yes, so I would like you to tell us, my next question is still directed to you. I'd like you to tell us, because we're talking about green financing, access to the easy access of these funds to youth. what are the things that you think we can do, like African countries can do, to provide unhindered access to financing to the youth?
Okay. So unhindered access to finance. Wow. I think one of the first things government should look at when we're thinking about providing unhindered access is how much potential that already is in the sector, in the green financing space. Because when you know how much potential there is, then it can also help you how you can frame your expectations in terms of resource allocation. So we should, so there's a lot of research that has been done, and there's a lot of potential in how much revenue can be generated from the green economy space. So I think directing finance for the youth is really important, and it's possible, because if we look at the continent, we have a huge youth population, and the number of Africans living in towns and cities, I think according to FAO, between 2010 and 2030, there's an estimated increase of 345 million. That's a huge market. That's a huge, that's huge human resources that can be leveraged for jobs. So if we see that, if governments look at that potential, they can, it can better guide how these, we can leverage our demographic capital. And yes, with that, I think we can then develop employment policies that don't only look at traditional jobs, but also look at green jobs. And then creating these jobs, we also can help these youth access finance. We have countries like Senegal. They have like a national strategy for economic and social development that clearly states targets for green jobs. So you can see that it's possible, and we can help the youth access finance in that way. Of course, providing those schemes where universities partner with private sector players for apprenticeship schemes, having like university spin-off companies where they employ youth to work, and our pathways for the youth to be able to access finance. Because when you have these partnerships, you have the data and evidence to inform some of your product designs. Of course, you'll be able to access banks with more information that would kind of reduce their risk perception of your intervention, and then you can better access finance. Of course, private sector cannot do it on their own. So government also needs to create this skills development and training platform where the youth can gain the skills that they need. And these skills will help with employment opportunities that will also lead on to making them more creditworthy and building bankable businesses and having access to bigger players in the space and forming those partnerships. So yes, we can say government should do more. And I'm sure if when we share these webinar recordings with the wider public, they will understand the importance of what the green economy is, the potential it has, and if we are intentional about creating the platform for the youth to gain the skills and access the trainings that they need, and also access to the banks and other investors, because we have green angel investors, they have IFI, so it's not always commercial loans at commercial rates, but also having those loans that are with different, interest rates or requirements can also help our youths enter the green financing space. And I think another word of encouragement is that our youth should not, they should be leading in terms of ideation on these green products, because we are the future leaders. So we need to be doing more of the active thinking. And when we do this active thinking and present the evidence and the potential, of course, it will also help make the case for investment in our initiatives.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. This question is for Dr.
Yep, I can.
Okay. So very briefly, can you tell us about this green funds that are available in Africa?
Green bonds are kind of tricky though, because again, it's a financial instrument. It's sort of like crowdsourcing, some form of credit note thereof. To say, look, you guys should come and buy interest from this market that we are yet to either, develop, because people need money and the market is viable and the market is there. There's a need for bond, for other investors who would like to invest, within the market but are not sure of how to go about that.
I can barely hear you.
So that... Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you clear now.
Yes. So it's not like a process where people who would like to buy into a market that are not sure how to raise that kind of fund can go through a green bond, whereby on the flip side, on the supply side, or rather demand side, you find companies who also want to access that fund will always have to pass through the issuing organization. So for instance, again, because of the volatility of bonds around, or rather, market and economy, many of these bonds always have some form of guaranteeing structure. So I think that, a few people, around are really, they are raising bonds, in different ways. So for the Nigerian government, a green bond instrument was raised, and it was totally oversold. In fact, it was oversubscribed, meaning that almost everybody wanted to invest into green, which was sort of like a confidence also in the side of, investors and also the Nigerian economy, that look, the moment we floated a green bond, we're still not sure how the economy is going to look like, took up that bond. And a friend of mine also, Tribuna, just said, what of, a renewable energy bond, green bond, energy bond, under 1 watt solar to driving access, or rather creating access to funds, or finance into the green space. Many of these funds at a very, at an SME level, there's a process to it, at a highly, finance level, again, there's a, there are all that process of issuers and, financiers and all those issuing houses and all that stuff. So if you play within the finance space, there's a very, sharp possibility that you will understand how to have access, to being part of this bond. But from an SME perspective, there are different institutions that have accessed that platform, which I think, you should try and look for it. It will further help you understand, the different processes of how getting access to renewable energy finance also is going to work. And because, again, this bond of the 1 watt solar is tied to the solar market, you can see a direct, correlation to it. For the federal government bond, it is green. It is, it is open. It is, it is endless. Green could mean many things, but again, there are lots of structures that are, that are also being put in place around, accessing green funds. So, for instance, FC4S is, is working with banks, to be able to help them, create green inventories out of the loans that they have made so far. So there's that issue of green tagging. So all the different kind of loans that has been given, FC4S is helping banks to sort of create a criteria on how to tag a, a product or an instrument that is called green, which will further boost the, credit worthiness or the credit rating from a green, perspective for that bank. And this kind of fund needs to go down into the different markets that it needs to go to. So, like a Providence Bank fund that we have now, again, that is a green fund. So if there's going to be a green tagging, all the different, businesses that have been able to access that fund, makes it possible for Providence to be able to access, to be able to get, access to several other, scalable funds, across the globe. So I think that the green bond at this stage is quite a very tricky one, but again, it gives access to creating structures for financing any new sector. So for instance, there's still opportunity for blue fund for the marine market, right? There is also opportunity for circularity bond, for the recycling space. Even within that recycling space, you've got plastic. I mean, there's a need for a plastic recycling bond. There is a metal recycling bond, and all those different bonds, available, to be able to make, enhance or rather strengthen the infrastructures in a particular market. So I think, so far, I think that can just be sort of like a summary of how many of these bonds work. I don't know if Yakma can also help us, explain that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Dr. Jones,
Okay.
do you want to, yeah, thank you.
So for my side, my background is in the public sector. So, so there are lots of climate funds that huge international financial organizations have worked together to release. And one of the key players in that space is the World Bank. And the World Bank Group works with other climate funds. So there is the Climate Investment Fund. That one was set up in 2015, and that was like 4.6 billion. And the thing about these funds is that countries need to be clear on what the activities they intend to invest in. So that will also help with the eligibility criteria. There are carbon funds, and the first one was launched in the year 2000, and it was about 2.7.6 billion. And around 55 developing countries were supported from that fund with more than 2 billion for forests and landscaping, protecting forests and other landscaping activities. There's the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery, and they've issued more than 200 grants to 500 grants to countries. There's the Global Environment Facility. There's the International Financial Corporation's Concessional Climate Finance Fund. So there are lots of funds that are out there, but the critical thing is how developing countries make them work to be eligible to accessing finance from these funds, because if we are not clear on how our strategy is, all of these funds will go back to more developed, more advanced nations. And we have a young population, we have a lot of natural resources to manage, and we are the ones that we often say are suffering from the resource cost. So I think this is an opportunity for us, for our government, for private sector players to all come together to see how we can improve on our eligibility to access these funds, and also implement these interventions in efficient and impactful ways, so that when more resources become available, we're in the front of the queue to access those resources. So even outside the private sector space and these bonds that Mr. Bankole has alluded to, there are also bigger financial funds that run into billions of dollars that can be accessed. And we know even like next month, the UK is planning on hosting the COP26. So a lot of discussions around climate financing, green financing, climate funds, natural resource management will happen there. So I think it's time for us, even if some of the players are not aware, the youth that have access to going online and following some of these conversations can listen and write up policy papers or briefs or information papers that can be shared with the leaders to make them aware of these funds and how we can tap into them. Because if the resources are out there, I think it will be a serious disservice to all of us if we do not find ways to work together to access them and use them in ways that can help us address climate issues, but also supporting sustainability. I'll stop here.
Okay. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Jones. But please, when you want to ask a question, we'd like to see your face.
So I'm using my...
I didn't get that.
I'm using my phone, so my bandwidth is low.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Mr. Bankole, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I was just trying to answer. Lauren Jones asked me a question, so I was trying to type it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So there's a question from the audience for you. So before you go, I would like you to just possibly take like 2 of the questions quickly. Yeah, so Stephen, apologies if I don't get this correctly. Okay, I don't need to call the name. So Mr. Bankole, the person asked that while there is a need for innovative financing, is the larger challenge mainly related to the absence of well-designed green investment opportunities with reliable and solid project proponents? Did you get that?
I didn't get the question. Can you read it again?
No, it's for Mr. Bankole.
This way, Eddie. Hello? Sorry, I didn't get
Did
you
you get
clearly.
that?
It was breaking.
Okay. I said the question is, while there is a need for innovative financing, is the challenge mainly related to the absence of well-designed green investment opportunities?
Hello? You say a need for innovative financing.
He said why there is a need for innovative financing. Is the main problem the absence of well-designed green investment opportunities?
Sorry, you said what?
Can you hear me now? Let me just, yeah, you're also breaking at your end.
I can hear you now.
Okay, fine. Okay, well-designed green investment opportunities.
In Africa, I think we do not have a problem, first and first.
Okay.
I think in Africa, we are so used to being whether we are very perfect or not. Perfect. Each country has got its own challenges and its own, cooperative advantage. I think that the gaps currently existing as perceived, I think these are gaps that we can equally work at. The model at which we want to work at it, global benchmark to how some of these projects should look like. I think that facility in many developing organizations that, that caters for technical assistance has some way, somehow solved that issue of having, a perfect project that you can work at. But if we also look at it from every perspective, any project that has been classified as perfect has taken to, has gone through the process of lots of panel beating here and there, advisory conversations, assistance, structuring till it fits a show that is interested in working in it to work with the entities that they need to work with and stop looking for perfection. Okay. Perfection is not a destination, it is a journey. And so if we keep beating ourselves to say, oh, we don't have perfect projects, we do have perfect projects. We have a system that has been working for us in one way or the other, right? Yes, development organizations will want these systems to be tailored along how they've been doing business. It's simple. Whoever plays the tune or who holds the piper or plays the piper dictates the tune. Or like we say in Nigeria, person will hold yam and knife. Now he go tell you how he go take cut up.
Yeah.
So bottom line is we have structures, right? And many of these structures need to be tailored alongside or any other structure that we want to align with. So what does it take? All it takes is opening up our minds and being innovative in our thinking. And be ready to embrace change, right? By change means that if a financier or a fund that says this is how we always do our stuff. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear
Hello?
you. I can hear you.
So what I'm saying here is that I think it's just been about we being able to work together as a group, first as Africans, and also, between Africans and other, and other economies. I think that there's a huge pipeline of opportunities. I think that policies can still be reviewed and proud of how. I think that in Africa, our growth and our strategy and our economic booming will be built around or the most, and these have been a community model of how Africans have lived for generations. Investors or those who are interested in the market needs to work with people who are playing in that market to sort of structure it in the languages that they will all understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. One more before you go, please, just briefly. Mr. Bankole. Can you hear me? Mr. Bankole, hear me, please. Yeah, I think I lost So it's from the audience. They said in Kenya, we have noticed that local governments and states are more willing to embark on innovative small-scale green financing. Would countries that are moving to more decentralized form of governance offer greater opportunities for innovative green financing?
I think anything that is being decentralized currently will give you a lot of opportunity. Many of our governments have always formed a central government, which again, I think that the kinds of governments that you form in your country again should be boiled down from the perspective and the growth of the people that you have. I mean, there is no such thing as the best democracy in the world. I mean, there are lots of opportunities around how decentralized governments, have been able to grow over time. So I think that as African economies begin to grow, there'll be, we'll see more of those decentralized, models in the different thinkings around, possibilities in Africa. And that's because, again, many leaders coming up now and all emerging leaders are beginning to approach their leadership position from a, they consider the, the center or the region where they are managing as, as either a company or a product. So we are likely going to see a lot of more innovative thinking on how people would like to develop their region, because the more you understand that your customer segments are the people that you represent, and then you need to create opportunities for those who need that resources that are currently being managed or to represent. So I think that we will see more, more and more collaborative opportunities, in the nearby future. Just to back it up before I leave with what Lauren Jones, I think that local government executives or chairman, as we call them in Nigeria, have walked up to our, to our doors, to want to ask that, look, this is where we are. We have access to water. This is the waste problem that we're facing. How do you think that we can work together? Well, my people needs to learn something. We are more agrarian in nature because we do farming a lot. How do you think we can manage and create a lot more opportunities? We'll be hearing about recycling and co. So I think that, the model that we run currently in the Climate Innovation Center is a model that can be, that can also be, replicated across Africa, because it is very successful in Kenya and is equally successful also in Ghana.
And so in Nigeria, we're doing exceptionally well around the growth of innovative thinking around, markets, clusters, sectors, and, within the green economy. So I think that is a whole new opportunity for us as Africans. And, the right mix of opportunities and factors that will help us grow are also within our hands. But our thinking also has to be aligned with a developmental approach and not just a comparison approach. Thank you. I think I'll have to leave because I'm jumping on another call.
Okay.
And I'll also like to prepare for it.
Okay. Thank you.
I really want to thank 1111 Foundation for helping, for inviting me. And I hope to connect with you, Dr. Jones, after this. Maybe there are areas that we can talk. And everybody else who would like to connect, please meet the host and they can share my email with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bankole. It was nice having you. Please enjoy the rest of the day. So, so I got back to Dr. Jones. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So with everything that we have said, with everything we've talked about, the local
Yes, they always say where there's a will, there's a way. And given that as Africans, we're more aware of the potential we hold, not only in terms of a continent that has a large youth population and also have huge deposits of natural resources. I think and also how we're also being more forward-looking and towards playing an active role in global development. I think Africa is in a place to build back better. The question is in how we'll do it and at what and how fast we can do it and how sustainable that growth and inclusive that growth would be. So one of the first things I think we should do is we should not overlook the challenges that already exist, because we know that challenges exist, but even though we want to move forward, there are challenges that exist. So we need to be aware of the challenges that exist and how we can work together to address those challenges. So in terms of fixing our economies, having like macroeconomic stability, how our existing growth is being made to be more inclusive, especially for women, youth, girls, and other vulnerable groups, and how we can build institutional capacity to stand the test of times, because they always say with strong institutions come better growth and development. So in building these institutions, investing in the right policy frameworks, investing in the right legislative reforms, building human capacity. And when we say building human capacity, not just in terms of formal education, but also technical and vocational skills training, and also for those that have already missed out on education in the usual period. So how we can address adult education needs, and also how we can also leverage technology, because we know that Africa, we've signed up for the Africa Continental Free Trade area, and that seeks to promote the free movement of services. I think we're EETF holds, and what the potential that climate economic growth holds, and how we can bring those together to see how we can make progress in that space. And one of the things we should also do is how countries have gone through several crises. We've gone, there are countries that have gone through civil wars, there are those that have experienced financial crisis. All of us are being faced with the COVID crisis now. So all the lessons that have been learned from surviving these different crises, I think we should build on them, and those can also help us to build back better. And when we're saying building back better, one of the things that we also should do as a continent is that our collective bargaining power in accessing finance, in driving policy change at the global level is something that will also help us to build back better. Because if we are supplying the world with a lot of our natural resources. We have cases of brain drain, our best people are leaving. I think we should be in a position to change that narrative and change how we've been perceived as a continent, and also show how much we bring to the table as a continent. So yes, we can build back better. It's just how we position ourselves and how we direct the resources, not only the financial resources, but also the human resources, and also the power, because in all of this, we need to have huge political will at all levels. So at the leadership level, government, president, ministers need to own and know that they should drive the process, and also at local government level, because development needs to be decentralized for it to be more inclusive and impactful. Local leaders, community leaders, the youth, women should all be part of the conversation. We should not say only those in public office or those that hold political office should be the ones driving the conversation and making the investment. We need to, as a system of Africans, own everything that we need to, that is needed to drive this recovery. So it's not only investment, but also having a clear communication strategies, driving information and sharing information and driving behavioral change, and also having a clear feedback loop on how some of these investments, some of these environmental and climate change issues affect us, and providing that feedback to those that are in those spaces, in those offices that can act on them, and maintaining that constant chain connected to the whole system. So a whole of system approach to addressing everything that we've said the innovation for green growth requires, is something that will definitely lead to positive outcomes for everyone. So yes, all what we have said is like, we know what is wrong, we know what the potential that is there, that we know what can be done and what we're currently doing. So we have all the different ingredients. It's just how we put them together, the sense of urgency with which we do it, and the efficiency with which we do it. So the ball is in our court, and I want to say thank you to the work that your foundation is doing, because this series is exactly what we need to drive the conversation. Because sometimes some people just need to hear about stuff and they become inspired, like it kind of like switches on a light bulb in their head and drives them to take in action. So having these platforms to share, to learn and exchange ideas, and also conveying information to those that are in the higher ups that can drive some of these processes is really important. And given that it's happening, I believe our continent is on the right trajectory.
Thank you very much. We have only you left, so there are many questions. Most of the questions are directed to you. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
okay, I'm here.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. So there's a question on innovation. Like, would you agree that the key issue is the level of local expertise, which determines the extent to which African countries can take up existing and forthcoming innovations?
So local capacity is a driver. And I think the biggest driver is the baseline from which we're all starting. Because if we look at the continent, we've missed out on first industrial revolution. Second, we're only catching up on third, and it's now probably we're also trying to leverage the fourth. So it's from where we start. And over the years, I think the investments in our people's human capital has been skewed. And it's now that we're being more intentional about investing in the education and skills development and training, and also looking outside the formal white collar education and workplace space towards skills development and technical vocational training. So yes, we've been left behind. Some countries more advanced than others. But I think now that, especially if we look at how different countries have been responding to COVID-19 and how we've kind of like scaled up in investment in science, technology, and innovation, I think we're in a better place than before. And yes, local capacity needs to be built, but also the key to this is forming mutually beneficial partnerships. So wherever capacity is lacking in country, we can reach out to those institutions outside our domestic environment that do have that transfer and skills transfer and capacity building, so that
I've seen two very interesting ones here. And this one is on raising more green finance. Yes, so Lauren Jones is asking, like, don't you think raising more green finance internally in terms of fast tracking the issues about financing the green sector innovations in Africa?
Yes, I think I value the action of being or driving the green economic growth. Countries need to take the lead. So we need to set our strategies, our growth strategies, and then take the first step in raising finances domestically, because that will send a stronger signal to invite external partners to join or put resources in the pot. So of course, countries need to first prioritize their own development strategies or pathways, and then try to generate resources internally or to drive those investments before considering reaching out to or the outside. Seriousness needs to be local first before external.
Okay, now there's another one, and it's on, since as sub-Saharan African countries have not yet industrialized, can one argue that countries in the region do not face the problem of dealing with legacy non-green sectors and can forge a green path with fewer barriers?
So it depends when you say we've not yet industrialized. So there are countries that, it depends on what you consider as industrialization. There are countries that are more industrialized on the continent than others. And even with that, we still, whether you have a lot of industries, if you're talking about carbon emissions, there are still countries that do not have those industries, but still have issues with the climate change and managing the environment, issues around proper waste management systems, issues around urban planning, town planning. So there are issues that are tied to having better green economies that are outside just the traditional, say, industrialization. So we're all in different spaces, but we need to now address this issue. So you do not need to wait until you have multiple industries for you to address climate change issues, because it's happening already. We see how the weather is going, all this flash flooding, reduced rainfall in certain areas that's leading to drought. So it's not about the number of industries you have, it's how you're managing and managing your natural resources and caring for your environment. So it's not on, say, you should not limit the thinking or the need for investment in the green economy to how much industrialization that has happened in your country. I think it's now that the damage that has already happened, we can address and make sure that we are in a better place to the negative impact.
Okay. So this one is from Pius Joel Abalis. He said, how can a young entrepreneur, most especially African youths, contribute to this innovation towards making Africa and the world at large a green society?
That's a really brilliant question. So if you recall, in my response to the first question, there are different ways we can drive innovation for the green economy. And one of the things that we always say is that we shouldn't assume that nothing exists. So as a young person, one of the first things you can do is like, you need to examine and how they can be modified to address some of the climate issues that we're faced with. So we often need to start first with looking at how we can make some of our technologies more adaptive before we start moving to frontier technologies where we actually need to now create new interventions and new products. And because that's where those levels are more resource intensive than when we say we're trying to adapt existing technologies. And together, we can then look at how we can work towards making those interventions, the take-up of those interventions, then it will kind of reduce the pressure on gaining access to finance challenges, or also bringing in more players into the space, finding partnerships. So as a young person, the first thing we should look at is how we can adapt existing technologies, existing policies, contributing to the adaptation of existing policies, developing new skills, or undertaking new skills training to enhance our existing skills. That's a first step to contributing in that space before we look into see how we can actually undertake research and development into new novel products.
Okay, thank you very much. So another one on targeting the youth. Would the growing number of rejuvenated polytechnic colleges, technical schools, and village polytechnics provide platforms for accessing microfinance to initiate small-scale green investments?
Yes, so this is what I was talking about, being innovative in the human resource development space. So all these tech vogues and other colleges, places of learning that are providing skills development for youth, they need to understand that academia or research on its own is not enough to contribute to national development or green growth. They need to form these strategic partnerships. So we need to talk about how these places of learning can form partnerships with set up university spin-off companies, where people, private sector can come in to invest and say, give you seed money, say, develop a product for us around, say, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So it's about forming these partnerships. So if they have the human resources, they have the young people, they have these bright minds, they have the energy, it's just forming strategic partnerships, linking with private sector, linking with the public sector to not only have seed and create commercialization opportunities for some of their products, not only creating opportunities where some of these young people can contribute to research and policy design. It's possible working on creating apprenticeship schemes, job placements. So the possibilities are endless. So it's them developing the skills or providing the opportunities for training, but also creating the opportunities for forming these linkages. So these partnerships will together help us contribute to the green economic space. And one of the things that we should also look at and not forget is that we tend to get lost in the building the pure tacit knowledge, but having these frameworks can also help us link with practitioners. So practitioners will be able to share what their own challenges are, what are some of the shortfalls that they're facing in terms of implementation, that these youths in these different colleges and places of learning can deep dive into and come up with solutions that will help, that can be more marketable and can be easily absorbed by end users. So it's working together as a system that's the key, than just developing some of these solutions or acquiring some of these skills and training in isolation. Because some of these universities can also be centers for hosting incubators, startups. So the possibilities are really endless. It's just how we form these partnerships.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have like 2 more questions. So the next one is, what can African countries do to enhance the quality of projects so the region can access the growing number and range of international funding mechanisms that are available?
So it's a mix of things. Firstly, we need to have the right policies in place. So if we as a continent are not clear on what we need to do or what our goal is, then definitely we cannot fundraise properly, because what are we fundraising to fund? You need to be clear on what the need is, the strategy, have the right policies in place, take the lead in putting money where our mouth is before which we can't and research systems, because you cannot ask for investment if you don't have your market research. You're not clear on what the data says, what's the baseline, what are some of the external dependencies that would affect the delivery of your intervention. So proper research and development. And research and development shouldn't be like a one-off process. It should be a continuous process, because the world is not static. Everything is moving in quite dynamic and rapid ways. So investing in data systems, being innovative in how we measure our growth, because sometimes we kind of, yes, there have been arguments about GDP being inadequate, need to be complemented by other measures, but then there need to be more innovative indices. How are we measuring our industrialization pace? Do we know what's our industrialization velocity in some of these countries? We have incubators, accelerator programs, entrepreneurs. Do we actually know how well we're doing in those spaces? So we need to have the right data to inform some of these project designs that we need to then use to access financing.
Okay. Thank you very much. So to the last question, how do we get access to green finance down to the indigenous and local people, as they remain key players in this green recovery and building back?
So this is where the strategy comes in. So we need to customize some of the financial products. So those that are for large multilateral company, multinationals, those that are for small and medium enterprises. So we should not have like a broad brush approach to financing. It's like we should be more targeted. We need to design these products or be innovative in the design of these products, taking into consideration the realities that are faced by different sets of, at the different levels. So what the local, say a small business needs, it would be different from what a medium business needs and also the capacity of what a large multinational will need. Excuse me. So this will need to look at different interest rates for different types of businesses, different repayment terms for different types of businesses, even different requirements for collateral. So you will not ask for the same collateral from a multinational and ask for the same collateral from a small and medium enterprise. So it's how we design and be innovative in designing these financial instruments that will help us different levels of or different sizes or types of businesses access them. So the leadership and the strategy needs to come from the top, and being intentional that we need to make sure that businesses or entrepreneurs at all levels can be made to be part of this change process that we've embarked on, because everybody has something to contribute.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Jones. You've really tried. Thank you so much. Mr. Bankole.
Thank you so much.
Has left. I hope our audience had a nice time listening to our panelists. Now, I have like 2 takeaways from the whole program, and the first thing that struck me was that innovation has to be holistic, as it is very key to driving green recovery. It doesn't have to be limited to tech or having to design entirely new things. It's about perhaps polishing the things that are already existent, things around our policies, things around markets, things around strategies already in place, anything at all that's going to drive this push for green recovery. Then money is very important. If we can't leave everything to the government, private investment is very, very key, because we have whatever idea, whatever method, whatever we have to do has to be funded, and we have to be strategic in accessing the funds to drive the green recovery post-COVID-19. This is not the last session. The program still run up till next week. The last session will be next week, and it will be put across all the social media networks of the foundation. And we look forward to having you again, our audience, next week, where we'll be hosting another set of panelists. I'm aware that attendees are across Africa, so I'll say good day once again. I can't say because we'll have different time zones. I hope that we all had one or two things to take away. Finally, before I round up, I would like to say thank you to every single person across Africa that took out the time to be on this call. On behalf of the 11-11-12 Foundation, I'm calling it a day.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Kolawole. Thank you, Temitope. Yeah, bye.